Bill Morneau were going around the country accusing entrepreneurs and small business owners of trying to avoid paying their fair share of taxes, calling them tax cheats, meanwhile protecting things like family trust funds. And the Surrey Board of Trade worked with chambers of commerce from all around the country to help us fight that fight in the House of Commons. So I think we owe a big round of applause to the Surrey Board of Trade and all the chambers of commerce. I'm going to keep my remarks a little bit briefer this morning because I know we have a lot of people who want to ask questions, and that's always my favorite part of these types of interactions, when I can hear directly from you about the issues that are important to you, that are top of mind. But I wanted to set the stage a little bit about what's at stake for the next few months. The next election is only about 7 months away from the start of the 2019 campaign. So we're entering into the final few months of the House of Commons, the final few months of Justin Trudeau's government. And certain things are becoming more and more clear. The first is that life is getting more expensive. More and more Canadian families are finding it harder and harder to make it to the end of the month. A recent study showed that half of Canadian families are just $200 away from being able to pay their bills. The tax burden on middle-income families have gone up, and the business climate is starting to enter into some headwinds. In addition to this, higher costs are coming along in the form of the carbon tax, and we see things, especially here in this area, issues around affordability, especially around housing, getting more and more expensive. The response from the government in Ottawa has been to keep spending your money at an uncontrollable rate. This was the year, 2019 was the year that the budget was supposed to be balanced. Do you remember that promise? Yeah. Do you remember the promise of the 2015 election? 3 years of small temporary deficits with a return to balanced budgets in 2019. That is what Canadians voted for. Canadians voted for a balanced budget in this year. But instead, we see the deficit total reaching heights as high as $30 billion with no plan to balance the budget as far as the eye can see. In fact, my son Thomas will be 40 before the budget could even hope to be balanced, according to recent reports from the Parliamentary Budget Officer. And with Liberals, you can be sure of one thing. Deficits today mean higher taxes tomorrow. They've already tried to raise taxes on a variety of ways. You'll remember they tried to tax employee discounts, making waiters and waitresses pay tax on the free lunch that they may get in between their shifts. They raised taxes on small businesses, making it harder for entrepreneurs and business owners to save for a second location, for an expansion in a product line. They made it harder for them to create jobs and opportunity. They've raised payroll taxes, and they've canceled popular tax credits that helped make life more affordable for individuals and families. But there is a window. There is a window that Canadians can prevent more massive tax hikes in the future, and that is this election in 2019. By electing a conservative government that will control the growth of government spending, return our country back to balanced budgets so that we can lower taxes and stimulate the economy the best possible way, empowering the private sector, entrepreneurs, and families and individuals to keep more of their hard-earned money in their pocket in the first place. Everywhere I go, Canadians are telling me that they are tired of paying for Justin Trudeau's mistakes. We just heard again this week that you are on the hook for even more when it comes to the Trans Mountain Pipeline. You know, there was a time in this country just a few short years ago, just before the 2015 election, that government didn't have to build pipelines because private sector companies did that with investors' dollars, because there was a clear roadmap to get big projects completed. And now, after just 3 short years with Justin Trudeau's policies, the private sector has lost confidence in our energy sector, and these companies are pulling out of their investments. They're not leaving the energy industry, they're just leaving the energy industry here in Canada. They're putting those dollars to work in other countries and creating jobs and opportunity in other jurisdictions. That's why we need a conservative government that will bring forward a comprehensive plan to get these projects built, to bring our country closer together, to get Western energy to Asian markets so that we can get off of the discount that we're forced to take from the United States, Get Western Canadian energy to Eastern Canada so we can get off of foreign oil so that once and for all this country can be self-sufficient when it comes to oil and gas. And to finally end the practice of foreign-funded activist groups interfering with Canadian approvals processes so that Canadians can make their own decisions. So that's the positive conservative vision that I am going to be talking more and more about as we go forward. Housing, affordability, helping people get ahead, not just get by, and making our communities better to live in. You know, we know in many cities across the country that crime is a major issue as well. And part of our plan would be to ensure that our government is focused on holding those who commit dangerous crimes or repeat offenders accountable for their actions, that put the rights of victims and law-abiding Canadians ahead of the rights of criminals. That is a real plan. So that's the positive conservative vision I'll be talking about, one that believes in this country, one that celebrates success, one that understands that you don't have to tear somebody down in order to help lift somebody else up. A vision that unites Canadians, not divides us. One that will speak to making life more affordable so that Canadians can get ahead, keep more of their hard-earned money, and once and for all brings fiscal responsibility back to Ottawa so that future generations don't have to pay back the massive amounts of debt that is being racked up today. Thank you very much. I very much look forward to your questions.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have a question, please go to the microphones now. And I'm just going to get us started. Andrew, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
For coming to the Surrey Board of Trade. You know, you mentioned in your remarks about Canada's tax system. And actually, Canada is driven by small and medium-sized businesses. And one of our advocacy asks of the federal government is to simplify Canada's tax code, making it easier for businesses to navigate so they can focus on selling their product, making their product. What is the conservative position on that?
Well, we absolutely recognize the economic engine that small and medium-sized businesses are in this country. And when we were fighting against the Liberal tax hikes on small businesses, we all of us working with boards of trade and chambers of commerce, we're making the point that these punishing tax hikes don't just hurt the 1.2 million Canadians who own and operate small businesses, but the millions more who work at those very small businesses. And I'm so passionate about this issue because that's how I got my start in life. I paid my way through university. My parents let me stay at home, free room and board, but everything else was up to me. So I waited tables at a small business, a small family-owned business. I then got a job at an insurance company where a husband and wife had sold the family farm to get into the insurance business. So I benefited from all their risk and all their investments. They trained me, and I was able to pay my way through university and then have greater career opportunities. So when we talk about measures to help small businesses, it's not just for one small segment of the Canadian society, it's for everyone who benefits in that prosperity. So specifically, simplification of the tax code, absolutely. So many small business owners spend hours or hundreds and thousands of dollars complying with CRA rules, fighting CRA often when they get interpretations that have not normally been applied. Also regulatory reform. One of the things that we'll be talking more and more about is the cost to Canadians, both in terms of the price of consumer goods and in lost opportunities, because businesses have to pay so much to comply with regulations that have been on the books and have long since expired but are still in effect. Those are some things that we can do to help make entrepreneurs succeed easier in this country.
Excellent, good to hear. And I'm just going to take the liberty of asking one more question before we go to the floor. Is if you became Prime Minister, how would you, knowing that Surrey is a border city, how would you handle the President of the United States of America?
That is a very good question, and I think we could all acknowledge that no matter who no matter what party was in office, no matter who was prime minister, that would be an unprecedented challenge for whoever is leading this country. But I will say this, of course it is a challenge, and we see a president in the United States that is going down a road that we haven't seen certainly in my lifetime. The protectionist streak is back. We see the United States had always been, both Democrats and Republicans for many, many years, were always committed to free trade, understood the benefits in both countries when you had free and open borders for goods and services. That's posed a significant challenge. But I will say that our current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, isn't just having challenges with Donald Trump. The entire foreign policy of this government has let down Canadians. We see traditional allies in Japan and Australia very angry at the behavior of Trudeau during the Trans-Pacific Partnership talks. Of course, we remember the trip to India and the damage that did to our relationship with the world's largest democracy. Now there's a very tense situation with China, and Trudeau taking so long to deal with his ambassador, who is raising the appearance of interference in an independent court process. So to me, in order to have a strong position with the United States, it's all about showing strength, courage of convictions, and making sure that Canada is in the best possible position at the negotiation table. When our government sat down to talk about NAFTA, the U.S. was talking about auto and steel and aluminum, and our trade representatives were talking about social issues that didn't apply to market access. At the same time, we saw a flight of capital from our energy industry, which weakened our position at the table. And as a result, we saw Trudeau agreeing to concession after concession after concession, and steel and aluminum tariffs still remain. So a stronger position at the negotiation table and earning the respect of our allies around the world would put Canada in a better position.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Karen, we'll go to you first.
Well, first of all, thank you. And it's not if you become Prime Minister, it's when you become Prime Minister. First of all, I want to say thank you for always calling out the Prime Minister, and he never gives us a straight answer, ever. I've watched media feed after media feed where he never can give us a clear answer. I want to ask you two things. First of all, I have a husband and son who are police officers, and we had a recent shooting of a police officer, and the individual who shot this police officer was also a murderer. And I want to know what you're going to do to be tough on crime. And it impacts our economy. If we don't feel safe in our community, we are not going to be out there. We're not going to be feeling safe in our community and being able to be the best we can be. And secondly, what are you going to do about replacing or holding Quebec their feet to the fire with respect to their demands? They won't allow pipelines going through their province. I think we need to have some accountability there, and if you want pipelines, you don't get transfer payments, period.
Well, when it comes to crime, you're absolutely right. This is the number one priority for any government, is to keep its citizens safe. And I have, as a parent of 5 children, I remember the first time I let my son go to the park by himself. I remember the first time I let him go to the corner store by himself. And there's that sense of apprehension the first time you do that as a parent. And I don't know that I'm ever really, truly, completely at ease when they're off running around the neighborhood. But it's important to let them do that. And we deserve to be able to live in communities where we don't have that fear and that apprehension. When we see incidents, as we have unfortunately here in Surrey, tragic shootings, a rise in crime, Canadians want to see action. So I've unveiled a comprehensive plan to make Canada safer. It includes multiple steps that would address things like bail reform, so that dangerous and repeat offenders aren't just able to get right back out on the street, right back associating with the gang members that got them in trouble in the first place. Also naming gangs and criminal organizations in the criminal code. Right now, for a Crown prosecutor to get a conviction for a gang-related offense, they have to prove every time that the same groups are in fact gangs and criminal organizations. So as a result, they're less likely to do just that. My plan would create a list so that once that has been established once in a court proceeding, it would be there forever. And that would free up resources to go and actually get the job done by getting criminals off the street. Also tackling illegal firearms. That really is the problem. The Liberals are about to embark upon a symbolic gesture with the handgun ban. I've never heard an incident of a drug dealer or a gang member driving from one part of the city to another to commit a crime or a violent act, stopping to check to see if he had the right paperwork for committing the crime. So diverting precious resources into an ineffective measure like that not only violates the rights of law-abiding firearms owners, but it's also completely ineffective and actually would lead to less safe communities as police are running around chasing after legal law-abiding individuals. My plan would target the criminals, would also invest in more funds for our border service agents so they can track the illegal firearms that are coming in from overseas. When it comes to the situation with pipelines, first let me say, poll after poll shows that Quebecers don't want to purchase foreign oil. And you know, someone in the media challenged me the other day. He said, "Well, you know, the oil and gas that's coming into Quebec, it's not barely any of it's coming from Saudi Arabia." I said, "Well, why is any of it coming in from Saudi Arabia? And most of it's coming from the United States." I don't want to be sending consumer dollars from Quebec to Donald Trump's economy any more than I do want to buy oil from Saudi Arabia. We should be self-sufficient in this country when it comes to energy. And Western pipeline taking Western energy to Eastern Canadian markets, displacing foreign oil, is the right thing for our country. And our plan will ensure that federal jurisdiction is respected. It is the safest way to transport energy, and it gets it off the rails, which is also a very important issue for the people of Quebec. They know what happens when you have more and more oil being transported by railways. There was a tragedy a few years ago, and so I am confident that Quebecers will support our plan to get big projects built to grow the economy and make Canada independent from foreign oil in our country.
Good morning. My name is Dan Saunders, and this isn't up there with the Trump question, but it's the values question. A couple of years ago, for the nonprofits that wanted to hire for summer staff and wanted the government to help out, Justin Trudeau wanted the rule that they had to agree with their rules and philosophies, and this caused a lot of problems. So it'd be interesting to hear what you would do with that policy.
Well, this is another example of just how divisive Justin Trudeau is to impose his own personal values on Canadians, regardless of what they were applying for the funds. Conservatives were against the summer jobs attestation. We are very concerned that this will be applied to other aspects of government funding or government programs, so we're keeping a keen eye on that. I fundamentally believe the principle of the Charter rights on freedom of belief, freedom of opinion, has to be protected. And it is unconscionable that we had a prime minister that forced town offices